Hey everyone, welcome to SI Now. It is Thursday, March 2nd. I'm Maggie Gray, and clearly I'm not alone.
No, we got some company today. I'm Ryan Asselton, and we're happy to be joined today by former Packers Vice President and contributor to the MMQB.com, Andrew Brandt is with us. Andrew, busy week or two here in the NFL between the salary cap numbers, the combine, the league year getting ready. A lot going on here in football.
Yeah, it's a busy time, and I'm glad I'm not there. I'm kind of roaming around. I put in my quota on combine.
Okay, almost 20 combines. How many shrimp cocktails at St. Elmo's does that add up to?
And I had the same, we saw some video of Deshaun Watson and others. I had the same reaction the first time I tasted that shrimp cocktail. It is potent.
Yeah, you got to be a little wary anytime a city that's located smack dab in the middle of the country, thousands of miles from the nearest body of water, their number one thing is shrimp cocktail.
Yeah, there's no shrimp local.
Yeah, you did wonder about that.
Not.
Yeah. I mean, we were coming from Green Bay, so anything was warmer than that. But we always did wonder, and still do, sort of why in the middle of winter is this always in Indianapolis? I mean, there are stadiums everywhere, and here's the L.A., this new Shangri-La that Stan Kroenke is building. I think that's going to be the new home for the Combine. I'm just speculating here, but when they got it passed, it was going to be this NFL West, and we're going to have combines, we're going to have Pro Bowls and Super Bowls and drafts and Final Fours and Olympics. But definitely, I would think at some point we move it out of, nothing against Indy. I lived in Green Bay, but nothing to get this cold winter place to more sort of a
listen, if the Rams don't start winning some games, the Combine's going to be the best action in that Shangri-La.
So. Yeah, exactly.
We got lots to get to today. We would talk some college hoops later on with Seth Davis, but of course we're going to start in the NFL. And Andrew, we're going to put you at the controls here of our risk meter. We're going to talk about 3 players looking for a landing spot in the NFL. All 3 of them come with some serious baggage, and of course when we're talking baggage, we've got to begin with Johnny Manziel, who sat out the entire season and really generated no interest from teams and really showed no interest in joining teams for most of the year last year. Manziel is reunited with his agent. There's reportedly interest in him. How risky is it for a team to even start, dabbling in those waters of Johnny Manziel?
Yeah, he's an interesting character. I mean, that's his understatement. We've said that for years. I think the move back to Eric Burkhardt, who I know well, is probably a good thing. He left him. Maybe there was a mutual parting that Johnny wouldn't listen to him. They wouldn't have agreement on which way to go. So now he's back with Eric. Eric has good relations with a lot of teams. Listen, is he one of the top, say 3 a team, 30, 99? I mean, is he one of the top 100 quarterbacks? Probably, but he comes with baggage. So teams have to look at the risk reward. If we bring him in, obviously it's going to be a minimum deal. That risk is taken care of. You're not paying a lot of money, no guaranteed money. But what about the locker room? Does he take more maintenance than a third quarterback, which he'd probably be coming in, really merits? So all those things are going to be weighed, and if they do sign him, we're going to hear about second chances, and obviously it'll be like 10th chances.
Yeah, right.
But yes, I hear a little bit of buzz that he could latch onto a team as a third trying to get to a second spot. Whether that happens now, whether it happens a week before training camp, whether it happens in training camp, we'll see. But the year off has sort of helped. Reuniting with his agent has helped. All the steps seem to be positive. But one more report, chugging off a bar in Vegas.
Well, of course. And then it's over.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. You're talking about could he be signed a week before training camp? I feel like with Manziel, it's like, let's just get to the end of this week and see if he's okay.
Well, that's the reason why, to see if he stays.
Is it low, moderate, or high risk then when we're talking about Manziel? I mean, maybe we just answered that question because we're not sure if he's going to get caught on someone's camera phone or Snapchat story tomorrow.
Right. I think obviously low risk financially. I'd be shocked if he got $1 of guaranteed money. So he's going to make whatever he makes, the $500,000 minimum if he makes the team. So I'm saying a low risk on the money, more of a moderate risk on what he brings to the locker room.
Andrew, if you're in that room as an executive, what's the one question you're asking Johnny Manziel, knowing his history, but really kind of see where he's at mentally right now, where his commitment level is?
Yeah, I mean, I think you want to get past the BS that he's giving everyone. I'm reformed. I went to rehab. I'm all in. You'd want to try to get to an answer would be like, what makes us comfortable that you're different? And don't tell me, I have a great mindset. Okay, what have you done recently? What are some tangible things we can look at to make us invest in you? And maybe it's even what they have at these mini camps sometimes are these tryout guys. Usually they're guys way down the list on draft, but maybe he could even fit into that, have kind of this 2-day mini camp tryout. I'm just thinking off the top of my head for Manziel.
Okay, I'm talking about best fit for Manziel if he is going to come back. I see him maybe landing in Kansas City. I feel like if you have Foles potentially could be moving on, even though Andy Reid loves him.
Yeah.
You have Alex Smith. He's going to be down on the depth chart. They've navigated waters that are trickier with Tyreek Hill, Marcus Peters, other guys who are quote unquote character issues. They've definitely sort of turned those players, let's be honest, into all pros, and they've kept their heads down. And I feel like Andy Reid, could handle someone like that in the locker room.
I think so. I mean, listen, I was at the Eagles consulting when we brought in Michael Vick as a third-string quarterback, and he was a month removed from Leavenworth Prison. So, yeah, there's a history of Andy taking chances on that. But the question is, how many of those can you have on a roster? If you got Tyreek Hill, if you got whoever else that had issues before, you bring in another one. So I just think, you have to balance what's the best fit football-wise. I mean, if I'm Johnny Manziel or his agent, I'm like, I would die for Andy Reid. He trained Matt Hasselbeck, he trained Brett Favre, he trained Alex Smith, Michael Vick, all these great quarterbacks, Donovan McNabb. But is he going to take that risk?
Right. Now, obviously, the leash would be pretty short there in Kansas
Yeah.
City. Let's talk about a player who hasn't played a single down in the NFL yet, but has been a hot-button topic at the Combine. That's former Oklahoma running back Joe Mixon, who was not invited to the Combine in Indianapolis, rushed for over 1,200 yards, but we know what has happened. There was the incident on video back in 2014. He says that he regrets that, and we'll see how he goes forward from there. But talk about the risk level, which is really what we're getting to here. A guy like Mixon, track record, he doesn't have any track record in the NFL, Andrew. How high of a risk would it be for a team to use a draft pick on Joe Mixon?
Depends what round. I always equate risk to what is the financial risk, what is the investment risk. If it's low financial, low investment, I don't have a problem with Mixon. What does that mean? Does that mean 4th, 5th? Will some team take him higher? I think they will. But I think you have a moderate risk here because you have some character issues in the past. Here's what I wrote about this on MMQB. I think that really we have a problem here with the league and teams because the league has not invited Mixon, right? They say you can't come to the Combine. And the league, since Ray Rice, all these domestic violence policies, we've hired all these new people. We're so against conduct. We've stepped up our enforcement. We have exempt lists, etc. But teams will do what they do. And teams aren't going to be bowed because, hey, Joe Mixon's not here. They just have to work a little harder. They'll go to the pro days. They'll talk to him. They ask the questions we talk about, hard questions in the interviews. But the fact they can't do it at the Combine, I've already heard from teams like, what is that? Why? It's the job fair. And why are you disinviting him and Chad Kelly and others? It just makes it harder for them. So it's this sort of league in the ivory tower versus the teams on the front lines. It's been a problem. And you hear teams complain about this, like, really? You're not inviting Joe Mixon? Like, we're not going to draft him? I mean, listen, Frank Clark went to the Seahawks with their first pick a couple years ago, like a month after a very violent incident with a woman, because the Seahawks said, we vetted him, but they also said, hey, he was the last pass rusher on the board. So there's the reality. And if someone sees talent in Joe Mixon, which he obviously has, I think he'll be picked. And I wouldn't pick him high, but I think he will be picked high. And when I say high, first 3 rounds.
There's obviously the comparison to Ray Rice, and you mentioned Ray Rice there because of the video aspect of it. It's going to be played. Whatever team drafts him or signs him, that video is going to be played over and over on local news. But I don't know. My take, Maggie and Andrew, when you look at the comparison there, there's a big difference. Ray Rice is 30 years old. His production was declining. Joe Mixon is 20 years old, and you'd think athletically he's on the rise. And teams are more apt to take that risk and roll the dice at this point with him, right?
Yeah, I mean, Ray was on the decline, and you can't get teams to say the incident is the reason he hasn't played it down since the incident. Teams will resort to declining, older, smaller, all those kind of things. When we know that's part of the equation, why they're not signing him. Here's a young guy, this guy's career ahead of him. They'll take that chance on him, even with the video, which, by the way, not his defense, but was ever 3-4 years ago.
I mean, I think that we talk about risk and reward, right? It might be a low financial risk, but it could be a high risk in terms of backlash from the local fan base if that video is going to be played many times over. Andrew, as for players who are in good standing, two players, very high profile, who are on the market right now, Colin Kaepernick and Adrian Peterson. Let's talk about Peterson first. Played only 3 games after tearing his meniscus last season. 2 teams he's already expressed interest in, either on Twitter or just outright saying it, are the New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas has an unbelievable running back in Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, would they ever bring in Adrian Peterson?
I don't know why he's interested in Dallas, other than he likes the team, I guess. He likes the area, because obviously
he's from Texas.
Their future is all set with Elliott as the number 1. And it seems like with Dunbar and with McFadden, they'll figure out a backup, or maybe, and Elliott's a pass catcher, so he's a third down back too. I don't see it, Dallas. I mean, even if they love each other and they were in some, maybe owner's box years ago, Jerry Jones and Andrew, I don't see that.
Yeah.
Giants, I see a little more because Paul Perkins seems to be their guy now, and this would be a nice compliment with Perkins. But here's the problem. You get a guy like Adrian Peterson, who's a bell cow. He's not a third down back. He's not a change of pace guy. He's not going to be your scat Darren Sproles in the backfield. Jamal Charles, who got released, could fill that role. He may have a better shot at these kind of roles. So if you're bringing in Peterson, it just seems like you're bringing him in to be your starter. And then can you count on him, who's missed so much time in recent years? I think it's a tough sell. Obviously, I think he'll play next year.
What about your Packers? Could you ever see?
I mean, we're talking about, these are all teams that ranked, 20th, 25th, 29th in the league in rushing. The Packers are one of them. And
they had Ty Montgomery as a wide receiver as their starting running back.
That's not the ideal situation for the Packers.
Believe me, I hear from all the fans. But I just don't see it, because of, we know, what part of Ted Thompson do you not understand, which I've been answering for 20 years. He doesn't sign these older, quick fix free agent. He just never has. Although, Jared Cook's on the market, I think he'll re-sign him. But I don't see it because Lacy seems to be wanting to come back. He's healthy. And then Ty Montgomery is now a running back. So now they have these 2 options. But I'm thinking Giants. I'm thinking Tampa's been mentioned. Doug Martin, they're very hesitant there. I look at Tampa. Houston signed Lamar Miller last year, but he would like Houston, I think. Maybe that could be a change of pace guy. So I would think those teams way before the Cowboys.
The only problem with some of those teams, like Tampa, they're not close to winning a Super Bowl. Right. So if he wants to win, going to Dallas, going to Green Bay, going to the New York Giants might be a little bit better
Seattle,
option.
Who struggled with the running back.
But obviously, he's not the only person on the market. No.
Yeah, no. Let's talk quarterbacks here. How about Colin Kaepernick? He's opting out of his contract with the 49ers, becoming a free agent. Whichever team ends up rolling the dice on Kaepernick, the QB is going to come with a ton of attention along with him. How much does the front office factor that in? And do certain teams shy away and say, I just don't want to deal with it?
Yeah, again, it's all this sort of talent, character, maintenance equation that you throw into the mix. We talked about it years ago with Michael Sam. Michael Sam would be talented enough to make a roster, be drafted when we were talking this time that year. But there's the other stuff that comes. I didn't think it was any kind of gender discrimination or gay discrimination. I thought it was maybe distraction discrimination. So here we are with Kaepernick. He comes a little bit with this distraction discrimination. Nothing good or bad about it. It's just that teams want guys they're going to bring in and they're going to be all football. That happens. So I'm a fan. I think he can play, and I'm a fan off the field for what he stood for, put his words behind his actions. But we'll see. No one pops to mind with Kaepernick. In terms of...
Yeah, is there an X and O fit for Kaepernick?
And then there's always this, are you bringing him in to be a backup? I don't see him brought in to be a starter. I see sort of, is he okay with being a backup? Because I just can't say that team he's going to walk in and start. You can pick the teams that need quarterbacks, Cleveland, et cetera.
So read the tea leaves then for us, because if he's not walking into a starting situation, why is he opting out? I mean, once he opts out, the 49ers have 0 quarterbacks on the roster. It seems like this would be the best place for him to win the starting role. Obviously, you have a new regime coming in, John Lynch, and also with Kyle Shanahan. But why wouldn't he just stay if he's not going to walk into another starting role?
And that's a great question. I don't understand why it didn't fit with Chip Kelly. I just thought that was a fit.
Seems like Chip Kelly just wasn't a fit.
Yeah,
you know?
and then here, I just think behind the scenes, he knows that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch aren't all in on him. I mean, I don't know why you would opt out if Kyle Shanahan came in and said, Colin, you're our guy. Yeah.
Yeah, clearly they're not saying that.
So they're saying whoever it is, we can talk about the options for the 49ers. And yes, they have no quarterbacks now, but luckily you don't play games for 6 months. But yeah, I don't see why he opted out other than he was told you're not the guy.
Do you feel like the 49ers really think they're getting Kirk Cousins, that they have a shot at Kirk Cousins, even though he was just given the exclusive franchise tag by the Washington?
There's got to be a plan. I mean, Lynch.
Yeah, they have zero
quarterbacks on the roster. There has to be some kind of
unless
plan
they're tanking this season for something.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about Cousins with the Redskins, but I just think Cousins is not who they're banking on in San Francisco. To trade, it's going to take a huge package of picks and money. And also, they're kind of be a rebuilding team, so I just don't see Cousins as the rebuilding quarterback. What I think, there have been a lot of quarterbacks linked to Kyle Shanahan. The one that made sense to me was a guy that he trusted in Atlanta or wherever he was before, Matt Schaub, as a bridge quarterback. So Matt Schaub would be comfortable in that role, bridge to whoever, the draft pick next year, whatever it's going to be, but they have people in mind, obviously, and it's not Colin Kaepernick, and I don't think it's Kirk Cousins.
He's got that pesky interception problem, though, that Schaub.
You haven't heard that name floating around a whole lot.
But Shanahan loves him. That's the key. Shanahan wants a guy he can trust, a veteran, to carry the load while they develop, whoever that is.
Yeah, they're far away. They're not close, the
Absolutely.
49ers.
All right, let's stick with the QB theme here, where we're starting to get a clearer picture as to which team will possibly make a push for Tony Romo. Some conflicting comments, though, coming out of Denver here. Tuesday, the Broncos said they're all good at quarterback. But by Wednesday night, reports broke that Denver will go hard for Romo if the Cowboys release him. Here's John Elway yesterday when asked about that situation.
We're open to anything, so, I mean, we'll always look at it. And this is a time of year that, you look at everything and we try to, discuss everything, every possibility, what might be available, what might not be available, and talk about that and see how it affects us. And so we talk about all those type of things. Now, we'll see what happens.
That is the art of saying nothing.
Yeah, and he's,
They're good
he's
at that.
restricted,
Yeah.
Andrew. I
Everyone's
mean, at
good
this
at that.
point, he can only say so much about a player under contract with another team. But let's read between the lines. What are you seeing between the lines with John Elway?
Again, I'm back on Romo where I was with Peterson. I don't see how you bring him in to be a starter with the injury history. So, yeah, you can say Romo's our guy, but how much has he played? So it seems to me he's kind of a fill-in guy around somewhere. And with Denver, you do make your bed with a number one pick, I think, for at least 2 years, probably 3. So we can talk about, maybe people don't think Paxton Lynch is ready, but that should be your guy going forward. Simeon may be your guy now, but you invest in number one pick, which I think they traded up picks to get. That's a serious investment. I think Lynch has to play at some point.
But don't they have the luxury? You bring him in. If he gets hurt, you've got Simeon. You've got Lynch sitting there, an experienced guy in Simeon who got a lot of time last year. And if Lynch shows that he's ready, he goes right in for Romo. If Romo happens to stay healthy, it could be a perfect fit. This is a team built to win, a defense that's Super Bowl caliber type of defense right now. It's
interesting. You just said, as we watched Elway not saying anything, that's what all these guys are doing. I think they know. I think Elway knows. I think Shanahan knows. I think Tony Romo knows. Jerry Jones knows. We don't know. But I think these are going to fill out.
Can we call them and ask them? Because we'd like to know.
These aren't going to be decisions on March 10th like, wow, they just decided. No, these are decided in the months, weeks before. So that's why everyone's kind of playing coy.
Ryan, you bring up a great point about the luxury that Denver has, right?
Yeah.
They're not paying a quarterback right now any major money. They let Osweiler go, and now he's Houston's problem, and they have the big contract that could end up being an albatross for them, and he's clearly not worth the money that they spent on him. But you have cheap in Paxton Lynch, a first rounder, but not expensive. Trevor Siemian, not expensive. And how expensive is Romo going to really be? I mean, you're bringing him in for a year.
Yeah, we talked about
That'll be
that
an
risk
interesting
factor,
contract.
right?
Yeah.
It seems like the risk to bring Romo in isn't all that high.
Well, again, contract. I would think a contract screams out for an incentive-laden deal with Romo because he hadn't played. So you have what's the base? Is the base $5 million, $7 million, $10 million, and then stair steps beyond that? Yeah. But again, risk with Romo is the injury.
Yeah, it is. But it's just so funny because when you don't have to spend that money on quarterback, look at all the other places you can go. I mean, did they try to bring in an Alshon Jeffrey, shore up at wide receiver, anything, running back, all that stuff?
Yeah, a lot of options.
Andrew Brandt, thank you so much. That was
Andrew.
a lot of fun.
Yeah.
This was great.
Your time of year. It's always your time of year.
Yeah, much better than being in India. I like being in India.
Well, Ryan, unfortunately for you and I, our alma maters will not be making it to the NCAA.
You're not done yet. Your alma mater.
All right.
They have
Maybe,
a chance.
come on, GW.
Small
come
chance
on,
in the
GW.
conference tournament, right?
Yeah, if things aren't looking up. Your alma mater actually is looking pretty good.
Stanford,
Yeah, let's do it. But a very unlikely team, or at least up until this point, punched their ticket last night. Northwestern University. Congratulations, Wildcats. First appearance in the big dance. But yesterday, our friend Seth Everett caught up with the master of March, the maestro, dare we say, Seth Davis, to take the temperature of college hoops before conference tournament play. Well, it begins today, but begins in earnest really this weekend. Watch it.
It is March. We're talking college basketball, and Seth Davis, I have to just ask you, how great is it to have the first name Seth?
It is quite awesome, and the only thing better than having the first name of Seth is having two Seths in one internet show. That's got to be an internet first.
I'm telling you, this is going to be trending. I know it. Kansas is sitting at the top of the AP poll. They won their 13th consecutive Big 12 title. What's their biggest weakness going into the tournament?
Well, the main thing is that they don't have much in the front court. They are playing a four-guard alignment. Their 5/4 man is Landon Lucas, who's not really much of a post scorer. Of course, post scorers don't really exist anymore in college or in the NBA for that matter. And then along those lines, Seth, is they're not very deep. They basically only go 7 deep. And, I don't think that's a problem in terms of fatigue, but you can have injuries, you can have foul trouble, you can have matchup issues. Guys get sick, guys have a bad night. So their lack of size inside and the lack of depth overall in the front court particular, if they lose, I think that will be the reason.
Now, yesterday, Maggie Gray, our co-host, caught up with Jay Wright, head coach, number 2 team in the country, reigning champs, Villanova, where he was asked to compare this year's team's mental toughness to last year's. Let's listen in and hear what he had to say.
We're getting there. We're getting there. This team right now, this senior class, Josh Hart, Chris Jenkins, Darryl Reynolds, they have never lost back-to-back games in their career, ever. We just lost to Butler 2 games ago, and then we came back on senior night to beat Creighton and win the regular season championship. Their response to that Butler loss is starting to make me believe they might have that same mental toughness.
You can see the confidence. What do you think, Seth? Do you believe?
I do. I'm a big believer in Villanova, Seth. Now, toughness, confidence, the knowledge of what to do in tight situations. Of course, the fact that they've been there and succeeded, won a national championship. I think those are major assets heading into the NCAA tournament.
Right.
My, however, is that last year's team had one thing that this year's team does not have, and that is a legitimate 5-man and Daniel Oshefu. But if it's a question of not only mental toughness, but just the knowledge and court basketball IQ of knowing what to do and how to win the NCAA tournament, Villanova is as good a bet as there is in this tournament.
There is potentially 10 or more teams from the ACC that could go to the big dance. Now, is that a statement of how much a powerhouse conference the ACC is, or is it more about the lack of depth around the country that only 1 or 2 teams are going from other conferences?
I think it's a combination. I mean, well, first of all, we just need to remember historically, the ACC did not always have 15 teams. So this is a relatively recent development. So the idea that because you're going to have 10 or 11 of those 15, that this is the best ACC conference in history, I'm not buying it. And the thing about the ACC is it's pretty strong at the top. But, for example, if you looked at the Pac-12, those 3 teams atop the Pac-12 are as good as any teams in the ACC, maybe even better. Now, I think North Carolina and Louisville are definitely Final Four national championship caliber, but all of those other teams I don't necessarily see as threats to win the national championship. So one way or another, we have to fill this at-large field with 36 teams, and I think the ACC is definitely going to be the beneficiary of that.
What players going into March Madness will be the most fun to watch?
If you look at the freshmen, they are certainly, among the most dynamic players that we'll see. Clearly, Lonzo Ball at UCLA is just lots of fun to watch. He's got a funky shooting form, but I say don't watch the form, watch the ball, and it seems to go in a lot. Same for Malik Monk at Kentucky. We saw against Florida, he scored 30 points in the second half. He can explode at any time, and we're going to go for an old man as a sophomore, Caleb Swanigan, Biggie Swanigan at Purdue. Normally we think of players, like a Kemba Walker, like a Stephen Curry, great guards, great scoring guards who can carry their teams deep into the tournament. But if there's ever a power player who could do that, it is Swanigan. He shoots threes, he passes, he makes his free throws, he scores a ton of points, and he's absolute beast on the glass. So hopefully Biggie sticks around for a while.
Well, Seth Davis, all I can say is this is a month where you are everywhere. You're going to be on TV, radio, internet, websites, everywhere we'll be seeing you. Thanks so much for giving us a couple minutes.
All right, Seth. Good talking to you.
All right, well, Andrew Brandt is here. You have something in common with Jay Wright, the coach of Villanova.
Yeah.
You are both faculty and staff at Villanova University. So how's the feeling on campus? Are they predicting back-to-back championships?
Well, again, it's hard to predict that, but yes, Jay and I are friends. We're at campus together. I run a program there. I know the players well. I've advised some of them. You never say never, but they look good right now. I mean, they got a short rotation. Here I am talking college basketball.
Seth Davis got nothing on Andrew
Nothing.
Only
Brandt
6
when
or
it comes
7
to
Also,
players.
have you ever thought about going back to your agent days when you have a guy like Chris Jenkins who's on campus?
Yeah, I mean, they asked, are you still doing that? And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. But it's interesting, when I see Lonzo Ball's father, it brings me back to my agent days, dealing with dads like that. They just, a lot of maintenance when you have
Did they
family.
make your job better because they get the kid's name out there, or was it harder because the parents are so involved?
Harder. And I understand every player thinks their son, every parent I
Right.
know, thinks their son or daughter is the greatest thing on earth. You have to deal with that, but that makes it harder. I mean, I think Lonzo is telling him to chill. It's probably not working, but eventually an agent and a team will tell him, chill out.
Yeah, time to chill out. Well, I can say all of your kids really are amazing.
Of course.
It's not just you're thinking
They sometimes
they
tell
really
us
are
to
awesome.
chill out, though, too. And
So
we
many
don't always
golf-
listen, do we, right?
Golf videos of Ryan's kids, amazing. Little Rory's over there. All right, that's going to do it for this Thursday edition of SI Now. Ryan, Andrew, you guys are awesome. We will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Eastern with a fresh look at all the latest sports news. But until then, stick with SI.com, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SI Now Live. See you tomorrow.
James drove into the wilderness when a hungry wolf pack surrounded him. To survive, he had to become one of them, expand their territory, and nurse the young. How far will you take the all-new RAV4 Hybrid? Toyota, let's go places.